You are Locked On Chargers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Chargers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Your place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcast on the Locked On Chargers podcast feed. Pete Fox, Kenyon Barner. I've been covering sports in LA dating back to 2007. And of course, KB, 9 years in the league, 3 Super Bowl rings, but never played at Aloha Stadium, which is a sad fact. I was like, of course you played there. You were in a Pro Bowl at one point, were you?
No, didn't quite get there. It was a first Pro Bowl alternate. Almost.
That's something player more than I was. Today's episode of the Locked On Chargers Postcast brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Kenyon, I kind of think we all expected this outcome today. This game was, I don't know, when did I text you that it was over? When it was 24-7 or whatever. And I think at that point we all just kind of stopped watching and got a little bit more comfortable as opposed to sitting on the edge of the seat. We were just kicking back, watching the Chargers cruise. Yeah, I felt like, and one thing I want to get to real quick here. I like blowouts when it's my team blowing out the opposition. Yeah. But what I hate about blowouts in this day and age over the last few months is when the announcer calls a blowout score a burger. The Chargers put a 40 burger. I cannot stand this terminology. I've heard it 3 or 4 times recently. We heard it against when the Chargers got walloped by the Buccaneers. The announcers were calling it a 40 burger. What is this term? I just can't.
I'm right with you. I don't understand. I don't know.
And I love burgers. Don't get me wrong. It has nothing to do with burgers. I'm a huge fan of burgers. Never met one I didn't like. But this one I hate. So anyway, Chargers dominated. They crushed the Patriots in this one. I never at any point in time felt like the Patriots had a shot in this one. I think would you argue that this was the Chargers' most complete dominant victory of the season?
I would say that 1,000%, but it's also again against a bad football team in the New England Patriots. Yeah, so I would say that they came in and really did exactly what they should have done. Come in, take care of business, play as shout out to Bill Belichick, play complimentary football in all phases of the game and get the job done. And they did exactly that.
Yeah, I thought one of the good things about this for Charger fans is that this, fingers crossed, knock on wood, nothing changes next week. But this is the team that we want to see in the playoffs. This is the team that is almost complete. It's not 100% healthy. They're still dealing with a few injuries, but most of the dudes were back. Having JK Dobbins back, your guy.
Oh my God. There we go.
Huge key piece to this offense, along with Ladd McConkey. To me, those two guys are without a doubt the most important offensive factors not named Justin Herbert on this team.
Yeah. The offense just looks different. It feels different with JK in the lineup. The complete picture comes together, and we've seen that for the past few weeks that he hasn't been there. Although I will say last week with Gus getting 14 carries and being able to kind of get in his groove, he looked good. But without JK, this offense just did not look the same. Just like when Ladd went down at the receiver spot, it just didn't look the same. And so to see JK back out there and to see this offense moving and grooving the way that it was, to see him get back and have the game that he had, 19 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. Shout out to my guy. Happy to see him back. Super happy to see him back. But speaking of injuries, can we talk about Elijah Molden? Can we talk about this?
Oh, I hate that. I hate seeing that so much. Having torn my ACL in something fairly similar, I was playing paintball, but no one hit me. I jumped into a hole and my knee kind of went bang, and I'm familiar with that. And I'm just like, oh, I hope that's not an ACL, because that's what happens. That's what it looks like. But that's terrible.
It's here when he went down the first time, take him out the game. The game is in hand. There's no reason for him to be back out there. But not only that, you hear the announcers say that, oh, he didn't look good in pregame warm-ups, but he playing anyway. One, as a player, you have to be able to say no. Steve Smith, my rookie year, I was coming off a mid-foot sprain, and they were trying to get me to play. And Steve Smith came to me pregame warm-up as they're trying to work me out to see if I'm ready, pulls me to the side and tells me the answer is no. And I'm like, what? He said, the answer is no. You know how you feel, you know how you look, and you know you're not comfortable. The answer is no. And as a player, it's oftentimes hard for us to use those words no in the field of football. Sometimes you got to be smart. And to see him go out there, one, to get hurt on the first play, then to come right back and then have that happen, you got to say no. And as a coach, you got to understand, okay, we don't need him out there. Take him out. Take him out. He's a key part to this defense.
Yeah, it was the other knee.
Yeah, the opposite. Overcompensation. Yeah. You're out there limping, that other leg is overcompensation. And so you just hate to see it. You really do. You hate to see it. Hopefully it isn't what it looked like, what it appeared to be. But yeah, you just hate to see that.
Yeah, he's been huge for them too. One of the top guys on the defense as far as, stats and being a key factor in the defensive plays. He's out there game after game after game. 4 tackles today, but left the game early with that knee injury, and hopefully it's just a strain. But even still, if it's a strain, that's still a couple of weeks. So I guess it's a long shot that he'll be back for the playoffs. But in the end, the Chargers cruise 40-7 in this game. And I know that you're a big JK Dobbins fan, but without a doubt, your favorite player on this team is easily the return guy who had the touchdown, Darius Davis.
Darius Davis
made one of the best catches today for that first score that I have seen all season. That catch was phenomenal.
He's a dog.
Just absolutely laid out to get that ball. I mean, that ball was overthrown at best.
Yeah, but when what they say, big time players make big time plays in big time games. And he's a guy who's shown up primarily on special teams throughout the season in the spots that they have put him in on offense. You see him shine, you see him glow, you see him go out there and get the job done. But he's a dog. He's a dog. He's a player. He's a playmaker, and you want to get the ball in your playmaker's hand. And he made a hell of a play on that pass.
Yeah, the thing about this game that I've probably felt the best about was the comfortability. And I'm not sure that that's a word, but I like it.
I like it, and I think it is. It sounds good and it sounds right.
Explains the way I felt about Justin Herbert's performance today. Just relaxed,
in control,
confident, in control, sitting in the pocket, rolling out when he needed to. But look, the Patriots were providing no pass rush
at all.
That made it a whole lot easier. Another thing, I felt like the offense was a little slow, and maybe if you saw something different, let me know. But I felt like the offense was a little slow to get going, and that was fine. They didn't pressure, they didn't force anything. They didn't try to make things happen that weren't there. And I was like, that's cool. Just, keep counterpunching until you find your opening. And that's exactly what they did. Now, look, it's not a good team in the Patriots, but I think that mindset was nice to see from them. Like, we're not trying to make tough passes. We're not trying to do more than we need to. Unlike the Trojans yesterday and that Vegas bowl game where they were
still got it done. They got it done.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit later because that game was just am I supposed to be excited about that? Because it felt like a disaster that they won. I mean, it was a janky win is what I described it as. But yeah, early in the game when they couldn't get anything going, they were trying to fit balls into places that they just don't fit. Whereas the Chargers were like, that's not a good pass. I'm going to check down. I'm going to, throw this little dump pass over here to McConkey or Darius Davis. He only caught a couple of balls, did Davis. But Palmer had a nice day. Quentin Johnston had a nice day. He was just finding the openings. And then when it didn't work, it was almost like this was the perfect balanced attack as well. Like, we don't have anything to throw. We're just going to hand the ball off, and JK is going to do his thing.
This offense looked completely different today. We kind of talked about it a few minutes ago, but it was take what they give you. And that's what you want to see from an offense. It's not always going to be the big plays, the spectacular plays. Sometimes it's going to be a dink and dunk type of game until you find your rhythm. We talked about Tom before, but you watch Tom do it all the time. Until those plays present themselves, he's going to dink and dunk you to death. And that's what they did in these first couple of drives, first couple of possessions until they found their foot and found their groove. And then the playbook started opening up.
All right, Chargers 47, punching their ticket to the postseason. If it wasn't until today, Kenyon, they would play the Baltimore Ravens. So the mandate for Charger fans is to root for the Bengals to beat the Broncos, which could change that playoff matchup for the Chargers. So that's what we're doing for the rest of today. We're rooting for the Bengals to beat the Broncos in that game there, because that will help the Chargers. 40-7, the final. He's Kenyon Barner and Pete Fox. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. When we come back, I'm going to tell you another thing about this game that I loved. I absolutely loved. That is very anti-Patriot. So we'll get to that after this. All right, today's episode of the Locked On Chargers postcast is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Here's what's going on at Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend your time wisely, especially this week between Christmas and New Year's, where there's not a whole lot going on? A lot of people just sitting on their couch, watching football, trying, honeydews, trying to find things to do. Well, with Hillsdale College, you can enlighten yourself. History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or if you did, maybe you need a little refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Here are just a few of the courses available for free at Hillsdale College. FREE, Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics. I know a lot of people that could use that one. The Great American Story, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in whenever you're available. You can go deeper on readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go to hillsdalecollege.edu or hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. No cost, and it's easy to get started. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon. All right, Chargers cruise to victory, a complete win for them, 40-7. The thing I enjoyed most, not most, but one of my bright smiles during this game is when they had that camera view from atop Gillette Stadium, like you could see the whole stadium, and it was about half full at best. The lower bowl was barely half full. The middle and the top was basically a quarter full. I mean, every third seat was or every other seat was empty at best. And I was like, oh, how far they have fallen. And it's just, look,
you got a kick out of that.
I did. I enjoyed that because look, we're all sick of the Kansas City Chiefs right now. I mean, it's hard to argue and it's hard to criticize them because they are great. And that's what makes sports great. You got to have a king of the hill to knock off. And we get it. Absolutely. We understand that. But, when you've had an A full of them like we have with the Chiefs right now, that's how it was with the Patriots forever. How long did you hate the Patriots? Oh, you were on the Patriots for a minute. So,
yeah, look, I didn't hate them. I didn't hate them. You
got a ring. You got a ring in New England. All right. You have a different perspective.
Yeah, I got a different perspective on it.
You're not feeling that same kind of disgust. Well, one of the things about this, from a play perspective today, we've talked about this a lot throughout the season, Kenyon. Give me your rundown on how good the play action looked today.
We've talked about it. We've talked about it once. Let's just start when JK went out. It was non-existent. There was no need for it. But when you have your running game, when you have your guy back and you can run the ball effectively, and you, as a defense, a player's ability. And so anytime there's a play fake to JK, he has the option and the capability of either taking it the distance or making a big play. So when you have that, have that in your back pocket, the play action looks completely different. And that's what we've seen today. We've seen a balanced offensive game where you could run the ball effectively, then come run that play action, have Herbert do his thing, get the ball where he wants to get it, suck the defense up because now you have to respect the run game, and it opened up. So it was a beautiful thing. Shout out to JK Dobbins, okay, the missing puzzle piece.
Yeah, the play action. I mean, it is amazing to me how effective that play is. You know, having never strapped on a helmet in a real game. I mean, my football experience is the Turkey Bowl and the Hangover Bowl at the park. You know, what we called two-hand rough touch. That's it. I mean, that has nothing. There's no linebackers, you know, crashing on running backs in that. So I don't I understand it, but I don't comprehend it fully as to why it's so effective. But when you're watching it work, it totally makes sense. You know, you're like, I get it. Yeah, the running back is so key to getting that linebacker to fill those gaps. And if the running game is not there, the linebacker doesn't have to fill that gap. And therefore, I don't gotta respect it. Exactly. And that makes the passing game all that much harder. Today, though, for the Chargers, the passing game looked easy peasy. Yes. Lemon squeezy. I mean, it was so simple. Ladd McConkey, they on the pregame show on the NFL Network, MJD did a really nice job of breaking down McConkey's routes. And I thought it was interesting and eye-opening as to how he loses DBs with just a head fake or a foot in the ground. And it really did kind of open up to go, look, it's not just that he's fast. I mean, he is a technical route runner. And yeah, today he did that, got open. And some of it was the defense, the safeties getting burned or disappearing. One of those touchdowns, Ladd just didn't he just run down the middle and the safety was gone, and Bernie put it right on him.
Yeah, it's
Herbie rather than Bernie. Who's Bernie? Herbie. You call him Herbie, and I was trying to be cool. Like
I knew what you were talking about. It's all right.
You knew I was Herbie Bernie, right?
I knew what you were talking about. Don't worry about it. We all knew. We knew.
But yeah, he made it look so easy. I mean, was that on the lack of defense from the Patriots or McConkey just running tight routes?
Again, it's the NFL. It's professional players on both sides, so I'm not going to discredit what the Chargers were able to do offensively, but it's a bad football team with bad players. But you still got to go out there and execute. And with Ladd, like we just talked about, he is a technician. When you talk about great route runners in the league, you talk about the Justin Jeffersons, you talk about Ladd and the way that these guys run routes, whether it's the slight head nods to throw a guy off the shoulders. When you can master that, they make it look easy, and Ladd makes it look easy week in and week out. So it's not that the Patriots, they're bad, don't get me wrong. But when you've perfected your craft and you've harnessed it and you go out and do it exceptionally well, you get the results every single time. And that's what Ladd does each and every week. So it's not just a Patriot thing, because we've seen him do this week in and week out. So more credit to Ladd than the Patriots not being a good defense.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Trojans' last second win in the Vegas Bowl over Texas A&M, and part of my
I'm so happy
issue with the Trojans right now,
I'm thrilled,
is they with Jaden Mayava, I feel like he's got some ability and some skill, and he's got a good arm, but I also feel like he doesn't have any touch, and he can't throw a fade route to the corner that's more than 10 or 15 yards. He just can't fit it in there. And I was looking at that game and I'm like, yeah, he's got to improve that aspect of his game. But at the same time, Lincoln Riley has to stop calling that play so much early in the game. I was like, are they just testing him to see if he's capable of doing this? Because late in the game, when they marched down the field and won that game, 21 points in the fourth quarter, they weren't throwing that touch pass over the top. They were throwing slant routes, and it was working for him because that's the ball that he knows how to throw, and that's what he's capable of doing. He doesn't want to check off, throw the first look. The slant route was working very well, and that's how they won the game. I'm wondering if a lot of this Chargers success with McConkey and Herbert is because of Greg Roman's play calling. He's calling plays that are working for these guys. He knows McConkey can run these routes, and these slant or over routes that just get McConkey between Herbert and the defense, they're easy. I mean, easy peasy.
You got to know your personnel. And as a play caller, as a head man, you have to know your players. You got to know what they're capable of. You got to know their strengths. You got to know their weaknesses. And going back to USC, you got to know that's not that kid's throw. But a lot of time, coaches make the game harder than what it is, and they stick to what they want to do rather than what's working and what's going to work. And then so you kind of see that at the tail end of the SC game where they're throwing the slants, throwing the quick passes, getting the ball out of his hand, allowing him to do what he does best. But oftentimes coaches want players to fit what they do rather than the coach fitting what they do around the player. Yeah. And when you talk about Ladd and Herbie and Greg, I think it's a combination of both. It's a combination of Greg understanding his offense, Greg understanding his players within the offense, but it's also those two guys being capable of going out and executing the things that Greg Roman calls. So I think it's a combination of both.
Darren has a question for you here, Kenyon. Why was Molden even playing in the third quarter in a 37 game?
Darren, listen. I was wondering the same damn thing. It's baffling to me. Again, I understand we want to show heart. We want our guys out there. But when you have a game in hand against a bad football team they don't have personnel close enough to come. They couldn't come back from a 14-0 game, in my opinion, watching this team play. Oh, yeah. When you have a game in hand, you need to reserve your players. Like, I was happy to see Harbaugh take all the guys out and put the backups in to go out there and finish out this game. Oftentimes you see guys get left in game and injuries happens late in game for no reason. There's no reason for him to be there, but also understanding that he was hurt coming into this game. So you should have been monitoring him throughout the game and understand, okay, this guy don't look right. He's not moving right. Pull him out the game. So do better, guys. Do better. Do better. Do better.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Be in control. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. LA punching their ticket to the postseason, their third postseason in their last 11. So it's a big deal for them to get to the playoffs, and hopefully they don't blow what was that lead in Buffalo? They blew 40 points, 30 points. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
I don't think we will.
I can't imagine that Harbaugh would let something like that happen. But we don't know who they will match up against just yet. Still need to see what happens with the Broncos and the Bengals today. After the break, two big stats for you, records for the Chargers. One a career record, one just a season record. So we'll talk about that after the break. Kenyon Barner, Pete Fox, it's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. Today's episode of the Locked On Chargers postcast brought to you by Game Time, one of my favorite apps for getting tickets to events, not just football, not just sports, comedy, theater, things of that nature. For example, if you're a hockey fan, Kings tickets, $89. If you're more in the Orange County area, Ducks tickets, $45. The great thing about Game Time, there's a lot of cool features, all in pricing. Toggle this feature on. It shows you the upfront price, no hidden surprise charges at the end of checkout. They also have Game Time picks, as I just searched real quick to see those hockey tickets. It makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. Views from your seat is a huge one for me. You can see exactly what you're going to see from where you're sitting. Lowest price guarantee. And if you're willing to wait like an hour before the game, you can save even more money that way. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Chargers 40-7 over the Pats at Gillette's, punching their ticket into the postseason. And on the back of Justin Herbert early, who had 3 touchdown passes, his first game all season with 3 touchdown passes. I was kind of surprised to hear that. But as I thought about this season briefly, it's like they haven't asked a whole lot of Justin Herbert, and honestly haven't needed a whole lot. There have been times where they could have used more, but it just wasn't there. Yeah. So, 26 of 38 for 281 and 3 touchdowns, a very nice performance, and 428 total yards. And the other one, Ladd McConkey. 50 yards or more in 9 consecutive games, ties the rookie record of OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. Is that it? I always forget. I forget his name because we just know him as OBJ.
OBJ.
So that's kind of a big deal. 9 consecutive games with 50 yards receiving or more. He did miss a game or two in there, which I think makes that a little bit bigger of a deal, like to be gone for a week or two and then come back and pick up right where you left off.
Right where you left
off.
A lot. It speaks volumes to who he is as a player. He's again, this team has playmakers in place, and Ladd being one of those guys who's clearly made himself the number one receiver on his team by a large margin. I don't think it's even a question anymore who the number one guy is. But look, Ladd is doing what he did at Georgia, coming out and performing each and every week. And also to Ladd, he broke Keenan Allen's record for the Chargers as far as yardage, rookie receiving record, yardage wise passed Keenan Allen today.
All right, cool.
So shout out to Ladd.
I love these stories. 2nd round pick, I'm not surprised at all because you watched him play at Georgia. You're like, I don't know how he lasted that long in the draft. What I am surprised about is that Georgia was the only Division I school, or not Division I, bigger school. What is that? Not Group of Five, and or is it the Group of Five? I always forget.
Power Five.
Power Five. Thank you. There was the smaller divisional schools that were interested in Jackson State. I can't remember the other one that they mentioned, but very small schools. Georgia was the only big school that offered him a scholarship.
And that's what it's going to become. I think you're saying something.
Yeah, exactly. The surprising part of that is, that nobody else did. Like, how do so many people miss on this guy? Is it just because he's small? Were they just caught up in the fact he's not a big dude?
I think that plays a large part. And I think people, I say this about scouts, the eyeball test. When this kid steps on the field, what does he look like? I don't care about his size. I don't care about his stature. I don't care how big his hands are. What does he look like when he's playing the game of football? And this kid clearly can play the game of football. I put the kid at Arizona State right now, Scatterball, the running back. No offers, but is an absolute monster. So there's misses all throughout college football and through the draft process as well. You miss out on guys. But I think it's better for those guys that are missed because they often land in situations where they could thrive.
Yeah, it worked out. I mean, it's to me, it's not surprising, but at the same time, it is also, it makes sense that, he's not a big imposing character as far as receivers go, but he's got good hands. He's fast. He runs good routes. I totally agree with you. It's kind of like, how could you miss on that? How could you not pick that up? Derwin James had a big game today, 2 tackles and 2 sacks. He was all up in Drake May's business today a couple of times. Kind of felt bad for Drake May a little bit.
I didn't.
Drake. Yeah, I was right the first time. You didn't feel bad. You're like, take that.
No, not at all. You knew the job description when you took it. You knew it. You knew what you're up against.
You have you never feel bad for anybody on the losing end. No remorse.
I do not. I don't. Not at all.
Well, Justin Herbert, good game today. 3 touchdowns, his first 3 touchdown performance of the season, 26 of 38 for 281. JK Dobbins ran for 76 and a score, a long of 13. Ladd McConkey, 8 catches, 94 yards, 10 targets along of 40. That was a nice play. Quentin Johnston, a nice game, 5 catches for 48 yards, along of 19. Josh Palmer had 4 for 41. Darius Davis had an amazing highlight reel touchdown that should make it in the top 10 on ESPN or at least some show. Stone Smart, a couple of catches and he played today rather. He played more as a blocking tight end, and we heard his name mentioned a few times out there leading the charge, blocking down. And I always love that when a tight end is dynamic in that way, where they're able to do both, and more importantly, willing to, because that can't be fun for them. Like, hey, I got good hands, I can catch the ball and run with it and score. Sometimes they're just out there blocking.
Nah, he I think they found something in Smart. I really do.
Yeah.
But to have a guy who can run routes the way that he run routes, get open, catch the ball, but can also get down in those trenches and, like you said, willingly block. I played with some great tight ends, and blocking was not their forte, and they would let you know. One primarily Greg Olsen. Greg would tell you, "Come on, guy, you want me to go down there and get who? Like, what are we doing?" My job is to catch the ball. So to have that in him, it makes it harder on the defense, because now when you come in the game, I don't know whether or not it's a pass or a run. When you have primarily pass catching tight ends, when they come in the game, okay, it's a pass. I can pretty much assume and guess that's what it's going to be. So you just add more value to the offense.
Yeah. Will Dissly is capable of it as well. He had a nice game, 2 catches, 21 yards. And finally, I think we forgot to mention Hassan Haskins. Good performance from him. 8 carries for 30 yards. You like what you saw from him today?
I did. Over the past couple of weeks, you've kind of been able to see a little bit from him. The Chargers running back room is they got a good group, really good group, and the future's bright. They keep developing Hassan. They keep developing is it Kimani?
Vidal, yeah.
I think the Chargers are in good shape.
Good stuff. 40-7 the final next week against the Bengals. That'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds, see if it means anything. But again, we're rooting for the Bengals to beat the Broncos today. Would help the Chargers in their first round postseason matchup. That game is on NFL at 1:30. And that's about it. So good stuff, Kenyon. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your weekend. We're off till next. Is it Sunday? I don't know when the Chargers. Is it? Will it
depend on where they land?
Saturday. When is their next one? Let's see here real quick. But yeah, they are on the 5th. It's not the Bengals next week. It's the Raiders. So that is January 5th.
Is it? I don't even.
It seems like that's a long way away, but next Sunday is January 5th. Okay. Crazy. So that's when we'll be here. The time is TBD. So it could be a morning game, could be afternoon. Probably not going to flex it into a Sunday night game, as it doesn't mean anything. So we appreciate you guys watching and listening here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, and for downloading the podcast on the Locked On Chargers podcast feed. For Kenyon Barner, I'm Pete Fox. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care. Talk to you soon.